Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about AlpineJS. I got to know about this lightweight JavaScript framework a couple of days ago. I think it's really cool. It's very simple as well. So let's get started. So I have the cursor open here. I'm going to create an index.html file here. We are not going to use any kind of builder or anything like that. We're just going to use it as a simple script file, and we're just going to use CDN to import Alpine into the HTML file. I'm just gonna create a simple HTML document here, body as well, and just say like task tracker, right? Um, and let's just change the title as to task tracker as well. For the UI, I'm going to use Tailwind. So let's, get the CDN for both of these. For Alpine, it's very simple. Just copy this here and then just go here, paste the script and just change it to HTTPS. So, uh, load it from there, and then for Tailwind you can just copy the script file as well. So I'm just gonna copy it and paste it here. One other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create another logic file, like the JavaScript file, logic.js, and I'm gonna import it here. So script src logic.js, right? So let's create a very simple UI. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a div container and then just gonna paste it. And also what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put div here. Instead of this, I'm just gonna do justify between and just gonna add a button which say add task. So now let's open it in the browser. So reveal in Finder, index.html, open with Safari, and you can see the task tracker here, right? And we can click on this button to add task. But what I'm gonna do instead, instead of keeping this button here, let's do a div here, and it's gonna have an input like this, and then the button which was add a task, right? So you can see cursor is doing a lot of work for me. Let's see how it's gonna look. I go reload. I don't want the add button like this. I want it uh, in front of the input. So like this. Great. Um, and then so we have this the UI. The other thing that I want to have is a list of the tasks that I'm gonna add. So I'm gonna add a div. And then in that div, I can have another div input like a checkbox. So you can, basically tick that task completed. And then I'm also going to have a delete button. So like this, delete. And then also like a edit button, but if you want to add it like in task or something. So just gonna add an edit button as well. Like this, and this input will, let's take a label here for the task. So, so for example, it's named like, buy some apples, right? And then you're gonna have like a checkbox here. One other thing that I want to do is when you check this, so for example, if you look at this, something like this, but if you check this, then it basically have like a strike through. So I can do something like this span, and then in the class, I can have like maybe line through this. Uh, so, in case it is completed, it will be line through, right? Let's keep it line through for now, but we'll eventually make it dynamic. So once it is checked, it should be dynamic. Also, like when you click on edit, it should basically show the editable state, which will be like, this buy some apples in input. So what we're gonna do there is I'm gonna create another UI. I'm just gonna say input type text, uh, you know, and then also a button to save it. So if I reload, like add it and save. I want to have the same kind of UI here. So I'm just gonna do this. So you can edit the task and say I'm just gonna put some margin. Yeah. So this is edit task and the add task, right? Now let's talk about how we are going to make it dynamic, right? Before we do that, let's go to AlpineJS website and let's learn a bit about Alpine. So one of the thing I really love about Alpine is that it is very small. It doesn't have a lot of like built-in stuff, and it's just very simple. So it has 15 attributes, 6 properties, methods. I'm not going to talk about properties because it's I'm not going to use it in this video. So maybe I can create another video about it. But I'm going to use like one of the method, like the alpine.data and some of these attributes. So these attributes work just like an HTML attribute will work, but they have more power to them. They have more nuisance to them. Um, so for example, we are going to use X data. This one is really cool. So you can define data on a HTML block, and then inside that nested block, you can reference to that data, change that data, and depending on that, you can do stuff. Then we have bind, which you can use to set dynamic HTML attributes. For example, class. If you want to change classes, if you want to change other HTML attributes, you can do that. Axon is same as like in React, you have on click and all that. So listen to browser event like click, mouse over, and all that. Text for changing the text content of the page of like an element. In changing the in HTML, we have XHTML. Model is, I think, which is like most of us going to use a lot, is model, which is basically you bind it to for example input, and then you can basically synchronize that data with your state. Xshow is showing element and all that, and then we have X4, which is looping you know on the on your data. Like in React, you use map or things like that. So enough, but we're gonna like revisit this when we'll be working on these. So let's go ahead here and let's go to our logic.js, and I'm going to create something called a data in Alpine. So the way I'm gonna do is, so I'm gonna wait for alpine.start, so alpine.init, and then in that I'm gonna use alpine dot uh, data. So alpine.data, and then I'm gonna define name for that. So for example, task tracker, right? So now this is our data object, and everything will be inside this task tracker. And then we're gonna create function which returns an object. So and it is going to return an object. And this object will be, you can imagine like if you come from a React background, it is like kind of like a store where we store like all of our data. So for example, we're gonna store tasks. Let's say let's do dummy tasks. For example, value, instead of value we can do maybe name, and say like task 1, and then say completed false. Create another one here, name task 2, completed maybe true. And now let's see how we can access it. So what you have to do is you have to go here and do x data equal to task tracker. Now all of these elements have access to that data, right? If you try to access the task tracker data outside the this div, it will not work because the scope is just between these two tags, and the scope is just between this div. So now we have tasks. Let's loop over them. So let's go here. One limitation you have for x4 for the x4 attribute is that you can only use them on template. So x4 equal to task and tasks, right? And then inside the template, you're going to have this your HTML. But one other thing, the other thing is that you need to have only one root element inside this template. So this is how it's going to work. Same when you return something from React components and all that, it is going to be just one root element. So we're gonna only have one root element, and then when we have task, we can bind those to the properties. For example, I will go here and do x model equal to task.name. Um, and then for here, I can do x model task.completed. So it depending on if the task is completed or not, it will change the value of this checkbox. And then I also can do x text task.name here because I can use this x text property to update the text here. I'm just going to remove this. I don't need that. So let's see if this works for us. Let's go to task tracker. Yeah, and you can see, we have the new task, right? And you can see when the first one is strike through and even the second one. Let's see why. Yeah, because we didn't like really change the class, right? And now to change the class, because if we need to change our attribute dynamically, we need to use xbind. So we're gonna use that. We're gonna say xbind class, and if task dot completed, then we're gonna do line through. And if it's not, then nothing. Now I go here and reload this again, and you can see, you know, it is task 2 is like strike through, task 1 is not, because in our data we have this as complete true. If I do false, go here and reload, then you can see it's not anymore. So this is like kind of a basic version of if you have data in state, then you can like map it through everything, like a very simple thing. If you need to do this in React, you have to define the state and all that. You can do it like this. One other thing is, if I click this, you can see it's also like changing the state. This is because we use the X model here. So X model, we use X model and bind it to task.completed. And now whenever you change the value of this input, the value of the state is also changing, and hence this is being triggered that we have to change the class as well because task is not completed. That is like really cool. If you need to do this in React, you have to do like state, and then you have to do on change, and then you have to go and change the state and update the state, and then re-render will happen and all of this thing. And then the UI will be updated. But here you just do X model and that's it. So now let's so this is like static, right? But now let's actually add the data here. I'm gonna remove this data, and let's say a new task. So I'm going to create a string because we need a variable to hold the value for this, right? So I did new task here, and then I'm going to define a function as well. So you can also define like trigger functions here. I'm going to do add task. Um, and what that add task is going to do is it's going to take the value from new task. So so and then push in the task. So this dot task dot push, the the name will be the new task, and the completed is false. So you can see I have used this dot new task because this is kind of like an object, and to access its value I need to use this here, and that's why we are also not using arrow function, because if we use arrow function we kind of lose the value of this. So we need that reference, and here you can also see I'm using this. So whenever you are here, you have to use this to access the property of this object. So this dot task dot push, and then we push it, and we don't have to do anything. It will take care of everything else. And I go here, and here I say um, x on click equal to add task, and one thing I have to do here is x model, bind this to new task. So now once I bind it, whenever I update it, the state will update for this variable, and whenever I click on add, it will push it to the the tasks array. Let's see if that works. Say, oh, make a video. I click add, and you can see it, right? I say, new task. I click add, and you can see it, right? And you can see these are like the when we'll edit it. We're gonna hide it right in a moment, but it's there. One thing is like this is not getting like removed. I want it to be removed. So what I'm gonna do is in here I'm gonna say this dot new task equal to you know empty string. So add a task, but then make a like for example make a video, add it, but it's gonna remove that new task variable data whatever there was. So and if I click on this, it will make it complete. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to make this input available and visible only when I click on add it. So let's do that. um So, and this is like very cool about Alpine. So now I can define X data just here. So for example, I'll do X data and I just say editing false like this. And now only this um, scope have the access to this. So if I try to use it here, it will not work, which is really good. Like, you can, for example, editing is like a very scope, very competent level state, right? We don't need to use it everywhere. For example, tasks were state like a very application level variable, right? So you need to use task like everywhere, but editing, you just need to use it in this like one column, and you're also like looping over it, right? So every item in that loop or in that like every task need to have its own editing state. So that like this looks really great, right? And this really helps with that. So now what I'm gonna do is editing, right? And whenever I click on, and I want to only show these, like show this one, this div only when the editing is true, right? So it will do show equal to editing, right? And this will be show when not editing, right? So let's do that. Um, X editing and X not editing. And then only like when you click on edit, like X on click, change editing to true, just like that. Right, let's see if that works. I'm gonna go here below this and say add a task, and now you can see you don't see that edit state. If I click on edit, then you can see like I see that again. Now let's reload this. I'll say new task, add. I click on edit, I go do new to, and I click on save. Nothing happens because we are not changing it back, right? Now one thing is we already have a model connected to that. So when you are in editing state, you have this model which is already connected to the name, right? So whenever you change it, then it will automatically go ahead and update that task, right? So for example, here in this button we don't have to do anything. We'll just say X on click. We're gonna do editing equal to false, which will just change it. Now go here, reload it, new task, we click add, we click on edit, go here, new, click on save, and you can see it's updated, right? It's even updated in that array, which is really cool, right? Like if again, if you were in like a framework like React, you have to kind of like go ahead, find it and update it. So it's not like that. Again, and also this works as well. So now it's almost complete. I just want to make this delete work. So let's do that. For that, I'm gonna define a new task called delete task, and I'm gonna do this. So this dot task dot splice. I'm not gonna use like map filter or anything like that. Like you have to use in React. It's just this dot task dot splice. and then you get all the tasks right, and then not all the tasks, like still, like, just thinking in a React manner. It's going to be the index, and the how many elements you want to delete. So I want to only do one, and then I'm just going to pass the index from outside, right? Just need a comma. Now you can do that very simply. Just go here, do so a pro tip is that you can all, like, if you don't want to do this axon and all that, you can just use at click. So that is like also like a syntax thing, and you can just do at x click, and not at x click, at click, and then just do delete task and just pass the index. But the problem is we don't have the index here, right? So to do that, you can just do this. So task and index, right? So you just have this in the parenthesis and you just pass it here. Now let's do and go ahead and check this out if this works. So new task and add another task, right? Now let's try to delete this, and you can see it's deleted, right? And if I delete this one, this is also deleted, and say new task, click on add, and you can see, I can check it and say new task is completed, whatever, save. So here is a task tracker using Alpine. I think it's pretty fast and it's pretty simple, and it's very lightweight. So go ahead and check it out. I'm gonna put this code in GitHub repo as well. I'm just gonna give you a link in the description, and I'm gonna see you in the next video.